Si muere oriental de que puedo habillé en kimono. Y si muere hollandés de que puedo un chipé de cosas. Au cabas, moi frisson comme moi. Char de boule de près de nuit. Un 4 mètres au 40 moi fou. Aïe, 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 doudou. Joli hibiscus, con pamplemousse, qu'a coulé contre le douce. Aïe, t'y coulait sa potille. Qu'on se criait, qu'a chanté en pied paumier. Madame de madame, si vent des alizés, à sous plage la à gossier. Ouh, t'y rosier de papa, on t'y si qu'à coco, côté mange à camaho. Si moi t'es envoyé de que puedo qu'à préparer la et si t'es un Mexicain de que puedo un sombrero maman. Au cabas, moi frisson encore un moins. Chair de poule près de loin. I met tout car mes filles. Aïe, 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 doudou. Joli hibiscus, con pamplemousse, qu'a coulé contre l'eau douce. Aïe, t'y coulait sa potille. Qu'on s'y criait, qu'a chanté en pied paumier. Ouh, madame de madame, on t'y vend des alizés, à sous plage la gossier. Aïe, t'y rosier de papa, on t'y si qu'à coco, côté mange à camaho. Rosetta. Mi amor. You took care of señorita. Abaca copa, keep it down, farewell. Dame, la cosa. When you are before going to the lava, a Venezuela. Decime a Venezuela. Ahora compré pa' mal de señorita. Mais chaque fois, mais j'ai petite Rosita. When you are before going to the lava, a Venezuela. Yo te quiero, señorita. Apaga campen, kita kayu pemuela Rosita. Ven acá, y dame la cosa, ven aquí. When you are people who go to the lava of Venezuela. 2 weeks I spent down in Venezuela. But look up on Lord, that señorita. But each time I remember little Rosita. I got the mother to get right back there in Venezuela. Tell me, brother. Yo te quiero, señorita. Abacagabra, give it down, Famuela Rosita. Dame la cosa, beda. Money on my people, Venezuela. Money, money español.
Good evening. Welcome to season 2 of Dissect. Of course, we have a beautiful, beautiful show for you today. And you know who we have with us tonight, right? But of course, we got to bring back one of our hosts from last year, our beautiful Miss Nike.
Hi.
What's going on, Nike? Are you good?
Yes, how about you?
I'm good. You ready for the show?
Yes, I am.
Nice. And of course, we have our second host. He's with us last year, I would say about 3 shows, and he's not shy to do the camera. Mr. Kaza, welcome.
Greetings and salutations to everybody tuned in tonight, east, west, north, south. Hope everybody's sitting down, sipping a cup of tea like myself. Wink, wink.
You sound
and
like
ready
you're
for
ready.
some good conversation.
All right. And of course, we have our special guest, and we could not kick off this second season no other way. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the legendary king, father, pioneer of the Kadas Lipso music. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Gordon Henderson. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, lady and gentlemen.
How's everything?
It's really an honor to be with you guys.
It is an honor to have you.
I'm happy.
Nice. So it's an honor to have you with us here on Dissect. And I think it's cold in France right now. I see you all jacket up and trying to keep warm.
Well, I have a gig on the 19th of November,
right,
which is soon. And I like to keep my throat warm.
Okay, nice.
Very delicate, you can never tell.
Okay, so I take it that's the remedy right there, the secret, right?
Yeah, that's part of it.
Nice. All right, so I want to get started and I want to talk about Kadas music. What is Kadas music and when did Kadas music start?
I like to add the Lipso portion.
Okay.
Kadas Lipso is in fact a fusion, a synthesis, a marriage, a wedding of 2 existing genres. One is basically Kadas Rampa, which is also called Kompa from Haiti.
Right.
which was the dominant dance genre and pattern at the time. And when I say at the time, I'm referring to the early 1970s.
Right.
And the fusion with calypso, which was the dominant dance genre in the English-speaking Caribbean.
Right.
Okay.
So this defines what calypso is.
Okay.
And how it happened by sheer coincidence or accident, if you will,
Right.
because the group Exile One had a record with what English-speaking Caribbean musicians did at the time, with a little reggae, a little R&B,
Right.
a little funk, a little calypso, and we were invited to play a dance, not a concert, a dance in Paris, France, because the group started in Guadeloupe and we became popular in Guadeloupe. So we were invited to play, to perform to that audience in Paris, France.
Right.
And the people applauded, but they didn't dance. The promoter was very disturbed and told us that the evening would end badly if we didn't make the people dance.
Right.
So what we did right there on stage is we combined these two, what we knew, calypso,
Right.
and what we were discovering at the time, cadence rampart or compas direct.
Wow.
We combined it and it became an instant hit. And the rest is history.
So
Wow.
Exile One was actually formed in Guadeloupe,
Yes.
not in Dominica. I mean, it is Dominican descendants
Dominican,
of
yeah,
band
yeah. The
members,
quick
but
history is I went to Guadeloupe by myself, all alone.
okay.
I got a hit record there. I was playing with a band called Levy King. I got 2 hits singing English
Nice.
because, as a matter of fact, the producer at the time, the Debs label, didn't want me to speak Creole and, of course, not French. And I was enjoying great success with this R&B soul Otis Redding type of thing at the time.
Right.
Understood.
The 2 singles sold well and exported Guadeloupe production far and wide. One of the songs titled Love, that you can do some research after, it's on YouTube, became a big hit across the Caribbean, but particularly in Suriname, which was a Dutch colony at the time. They were not independent yet.
Right.
And it subsequently became a hit in Holland. And when the producer saw that, he decided he wanted me to do an album. And I told him, well, if I am to do an album, I will not do it with Guadeloupean musicians. I would like English-speaking musicians. So I called my friend Fitzroy Williams,
Yes.
and he recruited musicians for me. So Fitzroy Williams is the one who recruited the guys to come over to play on my album, but I chose to call it Exile One rather than Gordon Henderson and whatever. We
Understood.
discussed and we decided it would be released, much to the disappointment of the producer, because the producer thought that he had spent money on me already, and I had a little name at the time. But I told him I think it would work. So Exile One was born in Guadeloupe of Dominican musicians. Cadence Lipso was born in Paris, France, of Dominican musicians. And I like to say it's like Einstein, the
Yes.
greatest Israeli of all time,
Yes, sir.
was born in Germany.
Nice.
And I also like to boast that a lot of Dominican stuff was born in the Dominican diaspora.
I see what you did there. I see what you did there. I like that. I like that. I like that a lot. Rich, for sure. Thank you for that. That's very intriguing. I never actually knew. Growing up, I'm a fan totally not only of the style of Kada Slipso, but of Exile One and the other bands that represented Kadas at that time. But no one's ever actually sat down and explained to me that you all were actually birthed in Guadeloupe based on the circumstances. It was just always Exile One, hey, Grand Bay them man come out, but you talk to your local dialect, so I'm happy to be getting it from the root. That's really good vibes.
But
I'm proud. I'm proud. Honestly, I'm proud to hear that story for sure.
But seeing that Kaza said that Granby, and what's the background of Exile One as far as Dominican? Like, what part of Dominica did I guess you guys came from different part of Dominica, but what part of Dominica did Exile One come from?
Well, you can safely say Roseau, because despite my name being Henderson, my mother was from La Plaine, my father was from Delis.
Right.
I was born in Roseau, but I was raised in Portsmouth, so I consider myself to be a Portsmouth man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
In my days, there was no secondary school in Portsmouth, so my family moved to Portsmouth when I was about 2 years old, and I moved back at about 11, 12 to go to SMA.
Right.
And all the other guys, Vivian, the bass player, I think he was born in Marigot, but he doesn't know anything about Marigot, so he was raised in Roseau. And all the other guys were, in fact, Fitzroy stole the cream of the crop at the time, because I didn't know the guys. I was probably 24, 25 at the time.
Okay.
And they were like 18, 19.
Right.
So Fitzroy took people from the Swinging Stars, from another group called Wooden Stools. When we started Exile One, most of the bands back home had lost somebody and were very angry at Fitzroy and at me.
Because of how things turned out or played out, I guess, in the end. Or how things started off.
Well, at the end, most people were happy. Most people were happy.
Yeah.
So with all that saying, I guess a little friction. But did that friction ever go on record? Like, did they ever make a song about you guys, or you guys answer them back, type of thing?
No, that could have happened, but I think that era we were kind of moving away from calypso, because that is something that could have happened within the context of calypso.
Right.
But that was really an era where there was a music revolution going on. And this is what inspired us to come up with something new.
Right.
There was an African band based in London called Osibisa. There was a band from New Orleans that we didn't realize had some Cajun Creole called the Meters. They were very, very popular in the Caribbean at the time. In fact, they came to Dominica, they performed at the Carib Cinema, not the Carib, the Arawak Cinema.
Okay.
Not the Arawak House of Culture. It was a cinema before.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, Roseau, there was no television, so there were 2 cinemas in Roseau with matinee and night sessions. One was called the Carib, and the other one was the Arawak.
Okay.
Nice.
So they were the concert halls along with the St. Gerard's Hall, that has become some kind of a chapel or a church since the cathedral has been more or less destroyed.
Right.
Understood, man. That's a pretty good piece of history. I feel like I'm in school right now. No lie. No quiz on Monday, right? With all this history I
You
get.
just might, but just let me add a lot of things that we wouldn't have time to go over. Um, there's something on YouTube called the Cadence Lipso story in 25 short episodes. You can check it out.
Nice.
Okay.
All
I
right.
didn't even know that. I'm gonna do that for
The
sure.
Cadas
Yeah.
Lipso story on YouTube.
Story, yeah,
So you
it's
just
on YouTube.
punch that in and the link will come up. So
It's
make sure you guys
25 short episodes of 5 to 7 minutes each.
nice. And is that produced by you as well?
Yeah.
Okay, nice. So
What year
And
did that? What year did
narrated
that
by
come out?
me with a kind of accent that I hope that everybody can understand.
as long
Right.
I'm acting the role.
as long as you're speaking slow, they'll be all right because that's the only problem. Oh, you guys speak fast.
Yeah, well, people like to tell me that I speak slowly, so no problems.
Right.
Right. You have mentioned that cadence music is a mix between compa and calypso. So I was thinking, since I'm from Haiti and we're
Right?
all about the compa and such, so I would like to know if you ever visited Haiti or anything like that.
Oh yeah, I've been to Haiti many times. Many times. Exile One was very popular in Haiti and in the Haitian diaspora in North America in the early 70s. I probably visited by myself and with Exile One maybe as many as 20 times. In one of our songs, I mentioned that we performed from Cap to Kai, which are the two extremities of Haiti. I almost said the island, but you know it's not an island, it's part of an island.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
and I made some startling discoveries. There is an island that belongs to Haiti called not too far, just off the capital, Port-au-Prince, called Lagonave,
Okay.
L'île Lagonave, the island of Lagonave. And it is larger than Dominica in area.
Right.
Lagonave. And it's green. And although I am told that lately it has become very touristic, but I visited it when it was not inhabited by many people. And I was amazed at how green and how it looked like Dominica.
Yes.
Wow.
Lagonave, and it's worth visiting. So Haiti, yes. And we played something that happened a lot at the time was when Exile One performed in the US, we would perform along with Haitian groups. So the audience would be mixed. I noticed that these days the bands have drifted apart and the audiences. So Cadence Lipso didn't only unify or wed the two genres, but it also wedded the two audiences.
Nice.
So Haitians, St. Lucians, all Creole people used to attend at the time. That has changed.
Understood. Understood. And you always in such a prolific era. You mentioned that there was a musical revolution going on in the Caribbean at the time. Calypso was on top of its game. Reggae was starting to form into a genre of its own, and in comes Calypso. To be quite honest, just hearing the liquor history, you all stand out in the giants to me for sure.
Well, thanks for that. Because Calypso was starting to become a little tiresome, and this is where soca came. This guy called Shorty. I wrote a book called Zookland. I was in New York last week, and I was happy to be invited to the New York Public Library to find out that my book, Zookland, is in their roster in the musicology research section.
Congrats.
Well,
They
right.
have
I
no
didn't know
autism clinic and stuff.
that.
Of course.
And in the book, I explained that the genesis of soca started with Lord Shorty of Trinidad.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I think he became Shorty I later on. But Exile One, we were playing at the Fort Young Hotel, and he stood all night in front of the band watching. And after, he decided that he had to do something with Calypso.
Right.
And he found a few people. I am told that Pat Aaron was one, a guy called Chris Seraphin, and Tokyo, a Calypsonian.
Right.
And they wrote together with Shorty the first soca song ever recorded,
Wow.
Udima Upiti Shorty, that the Gramax did a version of it
Yes.
later on.
Oh wow.
So
Wow.
soca, in fact, the same way that 2 generations later, bouillon has an impact on what is called soca in Trinidad today.
Right.
Cadence Lipso had tremendous impact on the evolution of calypso to become soca,
Right.
and that's how it is.
Wow. Speaking about booyah music, has any artist like up to date ever reached out to you about doing maybe a collab in booyah music?
Rosita, for example, I'm just putting it out there.
Well, strangely, you mentioned Rosita. There is that too can be, we can find on YouTube.
Mhm.
There is a young lady who looks white to me, but I'm told that she is half Haitian and half was this country off the end of Africa. It looks like a little dot, but in fact a very, very large
Madagascar?
Madagascar. That she
Okay.
is half Malgache and half Haitian.
Right.
Her name is Naika, and she did a version,
Right.
upgraded modern version of Rosita.
Right.
Hmm. Really?
There
Okay.
is another Brazilian young lady who did Jamais Voir Ça, which is another song. So there are numerous other people. Even I notice rap artists. There is an artist you can find on YouTube called Murs. I think his name is pronounced Murs. And
Okay.
it's produced by a Grammy-winning producer called Ninth Wonder. They did a version of a Kadas song of ours. So it would seem that Kadas Lipso is sparking the interest of musicians so in the United States,
Right.
Finland, England, Haiti,
Mm-hmm.
Brazil,
Yeah.
but the bouillon artists don't seem interested, or probably not yet.
Right.
Nice.
Oh wow.
Nice.
But I should mention though that my son, but I find that a little bit close to home, my sons,
Mm-hmm.
Dion and Clint, because we are in the process of putting together a musical, the first Creole musical
Right.
and they are working on modernizing. So they're from the bouillon generation.
Mm-hmm.
They're working on modernizing some of the old hits for the musical,
Oh, nice.
Okay.
but
So
It's a
it's not
very
a
interesting
national
project.
song.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
so we okay. Is it possible, Gordon, to have more than one favorite song from a band? Because I have a lot of favorite songs from Exile One, and Rosita is definitely one of them. My top favorite is Fresh, right? I want to ask you about Fresh in a minute, but what inspired Rosita?
Well, the inspiration behind Rosita is um, Rosita came right after it probably should be about the fourth or fifth album
Right.
from Exile One.
Mm-hmm.
And the chronology, the first album was all in English.
Right.
This is the album that brought us to France and caused us to get into this Creole thing by force, as I explained.
Okay.
So not to cut you off, but what's the name of that album?
It was self-titled Exile One. So we
Okay.
were dressed in robes.
Right.
Somebody told me that they were Yoruba robes, but we designed that ourselves.
Right.
So at that time, everybody had Afro haircut and Afro clothes,
Yeah.
and so
Including yourself. I mean, you had the box cut. I just tried to
uh,
picture you because you say everybody had afro, so I just
uh, uh, yeah, but the cut like yours came a little later.
Yeah.
If you had showed up with one like that,
yeah.
I,
I look out
I
of
I
place.
don't think that the girls would be very happy if that was at that time. You had to come a
Yes,
little
sir.
later
You
down.
have done the afro.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right.
Yeah, so the first album was titled Exile One,
Right.
and
Right.
then we had a series of hits, Creole hits,
Right.
but
And in
and we ended up touring a number of French and Creole speaking countries. That's why we went to Haiti, um, French Guyana,
Mm.
nice.
many countries in Africa that are francophone, French speaking,
Hmm.
etc., etc. So the inspiration behind Rosita was one, we wanted to target a more integral Caribbean market
Hmm.
where, so if you notice, Rosita, one verse is in Creole, the other verse is in Calypso English,
Right.
Yes. Yes.
all right, in English, let's say.
Hmm.
The introduction has something salsa about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yes.
And I tried to insert whatever I knew in Spanish.
In it.
So, um, and I know I would have shown you something. When I was in New York, somebody gave me a gift of a Latino band
Mm-hmm.
that covered Rosita.
Oh wow.
Nice. Nice. Nice.
So I brought this up to prove that the objective was attained. Rosita went into the Spanish speaking.
Yeah.
Right.
Rosita became number one in Jamaica. And
Oh.
we all know how difficult it is to
Oh
penetrate
yes.
the
Oh
Jamaican
yes.
Yeah.
market.
Hmm.
And
Wow.
it didn't just penetrate that market,
Mm-hmm.
but it penetrated the market, and the record was manufactured in Jamaica on
Oh,
the
nice.
Dynamic label. that was owned by Byron Lee at the time.
At the time,
Okay.
yes.
Oh wow.
So anybody interested in research can just go to Discogs and find Rosita on Discogs
Wow.
and on the dynamic label. So that was the inspiration on Rosita. And of course, it was, in terms of topic, a love song.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So I would take it that that's the biggest song that probably you guys produce as far as all these accomplishments, right?
Well, I'm not sure because of the people and what they like. Um, for example, I I am supposed to do a concert on the 19th of November. That's in a few days.
Mm-hmm.
And I will be accompanied by musicians. It's in Reunion Island, in that island, in the Indian Ocean. And I didn't choose the repertoire.
Right.
They chose the repertoire. So the
Right.
songs that people like in one part of the world are not necessarily um, what others like. That's
Right.
one factor.
Right.
Another factor is the generation. Some people like Akiaka and that kind
Yes.
of thing
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
because it's the generation.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And some people like Fresh
Yes.
because it's more modern and they can relate to it.
Mhm.
So we really cannot tell which is the biggest song.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
We can say, well, this one worked well in this market, in that market,
Right.
etc., etc.
Right. Well,
Fresh,
my
for
my
example, took a lot of time to catch in Dominica, Fresh.
right.
It took
Understood.
a lot of time.
That's one of my favorite songs. I mean, I have okay. As far as like up tempo song, Chueyo.
Yeah.
That's I love that song. But Fresh, there's something smooth and just slick about Fresh. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it
Mm-hmm.
and I have to ask you a question. I don't know if the audience, if you guys know what a CKA is. A CKA is a little bird. It's a little black bird that's like, yellow on the chest area, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, Gordon say in the song, fresh con on CKA. Now, I grew up with a grandmother that would tell me, Ali bien, o ka senti lo de CKA. So,
Yeah.
Gordon, I want to ask you what that line for some reason it always brings a smile on my face. What did you mean by that? Fresco or CKA?
Okay, because you took half of the phrase. So it's fresh,
Mm-hmm.
like a CPA
Right.
that is perched
In a tree.
on a pear tree.
Right.
Poirier, that's it. Because we have a tree in Dominica that we call poirier. Poirier. If you know anything about making these rafts, that, a pui.
Right.
You know what
Okay.
I'm
Yes.
talking about?
Yes, I know people. Yes. Yes.
It's a kind of raft, but there's a type of wood
Wood. It's very
that is
light.
suitable because it floats,
Right.
it's
Right.
Right.
buoyant.
Right.
So the sekiye perched on the poirier tree is not about the odor, it's about the beauty because he described the bird, it's like a robin,
Right.
Yes. Yes.
and the beauty of the bird perched on that. So that's what that
That's
line.
fresh. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm, I'm glad you explained that to me because that line it always draws a smile to my face. Like and every time I hear it, I remember my grandmother saying something. So I appreciate that you explained that to me. um, what I noticed, if a lot of songs that you wrote, they were very inspiring. Like it
Hmm.
wasn't just you could enjoy it and dance with your lady or enjoy it and hang out with your friends, but the lyrics behind it.
Yeah,
Like for
I
instance,
was gonna ask. You on the note. I was gonna ask that for sure.
right. Like for instance, there's a song called Home. That's another song that actually draws like very close to my heart when I hear it.
Hmm.
That entire Boomerang album actually,
Hmm.
right? The song Boomerang. I want to know the inspiration behind that because the lyrics on that song as well is very deep
Very
and
powerful.
very powerful.
Yeah.
And I actually saw you guys perform that song, I want to say 96, 97 in Dominica
Hmm.
around that time. What inspired Boomerang?
Hmm. And
Well,
you've probably been asked that before, but this is Dissect, so feel free to take your time and peel the mango properly and just let us into to the vibes with you. Yes, sir.
but to be honest, this is the first time that I've been asked anywhere about that particular song,
Wow.
Boomerang.
Really?
Oh
Yeah,
Wow.
wow.
Okay.
yeah. So I'm happy to explain.
Hmm.
Um, well, you all know what a boomerang is, this Australian thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
Absolutely.
in fact, it is a weapon, but it is shaped in a way that when it hits its target, it comes right back. And when that album, when we recorded that album, it was a time when I like to believe that if music, island music, were to evolve at a normal pace
Hmm.
and time, it would happen every 10 years.
Hmm.
Um, I listen carefully because your
Yes.
question to me is a very important question. Um, Jamaican music, the way I witness it is I started listening to Mento when I was very young.
Hmm.
And Mento and Calypso to me is basically the same. And then I noticed that the Jamaicans kind of Americanized the Mento and they went into rock steady and ska, and then it moved to reggae and it moved to dance hall.
Right.
So, and reggae seemed to be the Caribbean music that has really gained the most ground
Right.
across the planet.
Hmm.
So I like to use their evolution as an example.
Right.
Creole music, at the time we went into the studio to do Boomerang, we were just moving from Calypso to Zouk. And when I say we, the Creole music lovers,
Right.
because Calypso was music that was produced in an electric
Era.
and electronic period,
Right.
and Zouk came in the digital age.
Mm.
So lots of stuff in terms of recordings were more precise. And so I wrote the song Boomerang in honor of these musicians, Cadasipso musicians.
Right.
So if you listen to the lyrics carefully, I refer to them as warriors.
Yes.
Yes.
And just like the boomerang would have to, when thrown,
What goes around
would have to
have to
come back.
come back
Yes,
around.
exactly.
Would
Understood.
have to come
Yes.
back.
Yes.
Yeah, and I wasn't wrong because Fresh came out after that
Hmm.
in the height, in the glory days of Zouk,
Yes.
when nobody thought that there could be any market penetration during that period, and Fresh just proved everybody wrong.
But
So
but
Boomerang was something to inspire the guys
right.
and to honor them to honor them most of all.
Yeah, definitely some big lyrics in that song. You guys go ahead and make sure you subscribe to Islands Therapy on YouTube. Make sure you guys follow Islands Therapy on Facebook as well and TDN TV. Um, Another question I have to ask, like you reference Zouk music and reggae music, all these different genre, calypso, not calypso, well, calypso music as well, but
Hmm.
soca music, and I would take it in it. Well, you guys were still around, and you guys are still around even through the WCK era, right?
Yeah.
How
Decades. Decades.
how like your music is so unique that it didn't matter if we were WCK fans. It didn't matter if we were Marshall Montana, Sparrow fans or Bob Marley fans. We
Hmm.
still gravitate right back to the Calypso music, right?
Hmm.
How did you guys sustain through all these years and all these different genre building around the Caribbean at the same time you guys are
Hmm.
trying to go forth?
I I have very little explanation for that, besides the fact that when I discuss with the bouillon musicians,
Right.
because
Hmm.
um, Fitzroy and myself, we work a lot with Cornell and other bouillon musicians.
Hmm.
We've toured extensively with them. They play in Cadence Calypso,
Right.
and so we discuss bouillon.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that one of the things that contributed in making Exile One, because sometimes I wonder, why do people call me in 2021
Right.
across the world to do concerts, and they're not interested in anything new. They want almost a chronology of Creole songs from the 70s to now.
Hmm.
You know, that's what they're interested in.
Right.
I think what makes it different is the variety, mainly because we spoke of lyrics and there are other
Yes. Components.
components,
Right.
but the variety in tempo.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that bouillon music, because at one time I can remember discussing with Ra and telling him that I've never heard a slow or a moderate bouillon song,
Right.
that all bouillon songs were up tempo.
Right.
Hmm.
And what I noticed is bouillon, soca, the longevity of the hits are limited, it's almost seasonal, because when the trend is up tempo, everything is up tempo,
Hmm.
Right.
Hmm.
and then 2 years after, they might slow it down and even give it names. So this is groovy soca, this
Right.
soca, but the
Right.
same soca, but faster or slower or whatever.
Right.
And calypso, by definition,
Mm-hmm.
is varied. Mi-de-ba, Rosita, um, trio, is varied.
Right.
And
And
even if we didn't just say Exile One, we said Bells Combo or Lee
yeah,
Graham
yeah,
Max in
Bells
there.
Combo,
You're
and
making
I
a
think
very solid point.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
one of my favorite songs of the Groovers is Milk and Honey.
Oh
Wow.
yes.
It's moderate. Now,
Mm-hmm.
Groovers, they're known for having a lot of up-tempo songs,
Right.
Yes. Yes.
and so on. But they do have, contrary to say, so Big Bells Combo, Midnight Groovers, Ophelia, Jeff, everybody, there's variety in terms of
Yes.
tempo.
Right. And they
Would you?
all had, and
Mhm.
you all had a unique sound. Like Exile never sounded like Gramax. Gramax never sounded like Midnight Groovers. Groovers didn't sound like Taboo Combo. Everybody sounded unique back then.
But, every time I hear that, it amuses me, You know why?
Right.
Why?
You didn't think so?
No, because this is true in all genres of music.
Right.
Peter Tosh didn't sound like
Bob.
Bob Marley or like Freddie Will.
I like your comparisons here tonight, boy.
Tabu Combo didn't sound like um,
Exile.
Shushu or whatever.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Tabu, he had a very distinctive. So
Yes.
I think it sounds like a compliment, but I think it's when you like something, you you have a tendency to
To group it together. You really do.
yeah and so on. But I don't think it's anything that is specific to Kadas.
Mm-hmm.
All genres of music, the artists sound different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess you're right. But lately the music I'm hearing, everybody, you cannot tell who's who unless you really know the artist or you know the band, right?
That is the big point. That is the big point. Because I didn't want to contradict you with my statement,
Right.
but the a fundamental thing about the Cadence-Calypso era
Yes.
is every act had a certain authenticity about it.
Hmm.
Now, you're so right in Zouk, in Bouillon, you cannot tell one from the other.
Right.
And that started a new phenomenon in even the way that creativity exists.
Hmm.
Guys call themselves beat makers or producers,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
and they make beats and they distribute it to 10, 12. Now it happens in reggae, it happens in
Yeah.
soca, it happens in bouillon,
Right.
and people come and put a different melody on it. And this has been happening for the last 15, probably 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And this stifles creativity because you're hearing the same thing over and over and
That,
over.
that's right.
Sometimes you say, but they all sound alike, but in fact they are alike. It's
Yeah.
the
Mm-hmm.
same
It's the same
beat,
person. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that is used by everyone.
Right.
I attended a conference, some Barbados institution conference with artists from throughout the Caribbean, and they were discussing this beat thing.
Hmm.
But this is stifling creativity in the Caribbean as we speak,
Right.
and something must be done about it.
Hmm. And that's why, when people like you tour the world, we have to go see that, because that's the reason. Hence the reason, everybody sounds alike. So you mentioned something earlier about people calling you in 2021. The thing about the music that you guys created in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s is that it was soulful music. It's music that,
Substance.
yeah, it had substance to it.
It was
We
substance, yeah.
remember our parents dancing to it. We
Mhm.
remember drinking our first malt to it. So we have it. There's something in the music that is stuck with us. Whereas the music, and I'm not trying to disrespect anybody in their creativity, but the music where we have today, we hear it tomorrow, and then we hear it today, and then tomorrow we say, "What was that song again?" Right?
Mhm.
But like for example, I just said you could go back and listen to Rosita, Fresh. I still feel that same. I could put on a Bob Marley song in any party in
Mhm.
2001, and
Mhm.
everybody's gonna dance, whether it's
Raise your
Chinese,
vibration.
white people, don't matter who is in there, right? So
Hmm.
music to me back then, it spoke, and it wasn't about the lyrics. Like when I say lyrics, I mean the it didn't have to be English, it didn't have to be French. It was just universal. Like the music itself speaks to your soul. So
Yeah.
that's why we appreciate music like Rosita and Fresh and all the music that Exile One and yourself
Hmm.
has brought into our lives.
You write
And
music, you have certain musicians and you have music, right? And I agree with what Gordon say when you say you have producers and you have beat makers and you probably, I mean, me as a DJ, I know the difference and I appreciate the difference because you have, I can say from a selector point of view, you have that particular music you don't really have to say nothing about. When you draw for it at that particular time in whatever event, it's gonna give off that level of vibration and effect. You're gonna get that response. And you don't get that from music. I can say in my since I 12 I play, and you don't get that from music where it was a hit for the summer and then it gone again and you're looking for the next new thing. Them there's
Right.
not music you can draw for all the time and say, hey, that go and raise the level of the party. So I totally agree. I totally agree. Yeah? The craft has totally changed in the time, the
Yeah,
era, and the generation for sure.
exactly. On that note, so what would you think of the music nowadays?
well, sorry. If let's say the music from Dominica,
Hmm.
for example, I used to tell the guys something that used to infuriate them, and lately they seem to understand. Because bouillon music has been up tempo for so long, more than 10 years, and I use a 10-year reference because I mentioned the evolution of Jamaican music, and it would seem that every 10 years, they even named it differently. In Haiti, they didn't do that. They kept the same name, compa, compa,
Compa.
but the style changed every 10 years. You
Right,
can just do a little research and we will notice it.
right.
Bouillon stayed up tempo for quite a while. And I was telling the guys, for reasons of marketing, since you want to sweat all the time, um, the generation seem not to want to hold each other to dance. As a matter of fact, when Exile One played dances back then, the ultimate thing for young men and probably the women too was, despite the tempo, you would hold each other face to face as closely as possible, collaterally, and
Yeah.
dance, right?
Right.
When the generation moved to bouillon, holding seemed not to, the romantic part disappeared,
Out. Right.
and the dancing became a part, and the women turned around. So it wasn't face to face anymore.
Hmm.
So I told the guys, you guys have taken over the Caribbean and practically the world with carnival music. That tempo is carnival music. Promote yourself as the best carnival musicians of the world.
Right.
And they were offended. But lately, they started accepting it. But what has happened is Trinidad, meanwhile, has kind of slowed down the music,
Yes.
and people tend to want to turn back face to face. So there's some, Dissect is an excellent idea of discussion. I don't know if you dissect music all the time or if you dissect other topics,
Oh, we
but
dissect other
this
topics
is
as well.
a
Yes,
topic
absolutely.
that merits dissection is the analysis of how far bouillon can go, because bouillon to me can reach out to white kids all over the world.
Right.
There's, I see very little difference with, the disco up tempo
Right.
music
Right.
and bouillon.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean to sound biased, but you have a very serious point. I totally agree with you. The tempo cannot be the same pace all the time.
All the time.
You understand? No party that start at, let's say, 88 BPM and finish at 87 BPM. At some point in time, you're gonna need to break down, give the crowd a break, let them breathe,
Right.
and then get back to. So I totally agree with you. Variety in tempo, in style, moderation.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
think
you
the
see,
best example of that in the past few years from Dominica was Signal Band. I think we're gonna
yes,
try to get them on here sometime. But they had the Annie Bio Love song.
yes,
And I thought
yes,
that's still a
yes.
very good rendition, which I feel to me is underplayed by all our selectors. Hey, fellas on live, no offense, but Kaza just stating sometimes we underplaying some powerful things.
Yeah, I thought that Signal and Anubayo Love could be a bigger hit than it became.
Mm-hmm.
So something had to be done. And what you just said is, I can remember discussing with Wadix, and Wadix told me that with his years of experience, he had a way of starting his dance parties probably slower and moved up with the tempo, and he played with the crowd in terms of tempo. It was never top speed from beginning to end.
Right.
Understood. Hmm.
But is there any exchange between DJs and the musicians? Because sometimes probably the musicians don't know that, and that kind of thing. Because we notice in the extra Creole world, DJs play a very important role.
Very much.
DJs release albums, they invite singers. In the last 10, 15 years, DJs have become very important players in terms of the thing. But I don't know if DJs advise musicians, because
Well,
DJs are in more direct contact.
I could speak to myself. I could speak for myself and a few people I know who DJ, and we talk to a lot of well, Dominican musicians about
Yeah,
the
don't be candid.
tempo,
This is
or you
dissect
know
after all.
giving us something a little slower, or some, or a little space in the music to breathe, that we could probably mix the soca with it. Because I always say bouillon music, well, the world is always looking for new music, period, right?
Mhm.
They're always looking for something new. Every day something is being discovered. So give us the bouillon music in a way that we could present it, whether we use the kadas music, whether we use jab soca, whatever it is, to to bring it out to the world. But you could only speak, and that's all you could do. So you leave the people and they walk home and they get back to what they got to do. But at the end of the day, we don't I the way I look at it right now, we have people who program music. Back then we had musicians, we had music, now we have entertainment. So that's the way I look at it. But we talk to musicians all the time and tell them what we want. But next year you're looking forward to what you're gonna hear, and you hear the same thing over and over. So, but there is some people that is trying out there. So we're not knocking everybody.
No, no, no. There's definitely something going on. When I first heard Signal Band, even before the Anu Bayo Love, I recognized something very, very interesting in terms of melody,
Yes.
because when we analyze early bouillon, it was mostly what some people call chant, but it was like single notes, ta 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 ta
Yeah.
ta ta. Signal, probably because Shelley had a background in calypso,
Musical. Right.
brought in melody, and the tempo
It is a bit so.
came down,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and it caught, it worked.
Yep. Yep.
And I noticed someone made a remark about groovy, groovy bouillon,
Right.
but which is the same thing about if we want to be unique and authentic. I mean, the Trinidadians just decided to change the pace and give each pace a different name, you know.
Yep. Yep. It's marketing. But
Yeah,
Gordon,
yeah, yeah.
I,
So, but
we
the
get
bouillon has a lot of potential, but I think, I really, really think that the DJs should advise the musicians, because the DJs are better placed to
right.
advise the musicians in terms of dance music.
Hmm.
Hmm. Like a collaboration.
Yeah, and even if
Yeah.
it's not done on on an artistic level,
Right.
it could be done on a discussion level, like what's going on right here.
Yeah, man, open up a
Hmm.
conversation. Open up a
Yeah,
conversation. I mean,
but on the artistic level, um, you know, Exile One has an old song called Veyula.
mm-hmm,
I don't know if you guys have ever heard it.
mm-hmm.
What's the name of the song?
Veyula.
You laugh.
It
Oh,
is misspelled. It was supposed to be spelled Veil, but it is spelled. You can get it on YouTube. Viel, U O U and L A. Veyula. Now there is an international DJ called Bob Sinclair. Bob Sinclair did a version of Veyula that we could find on YouTube as well.
Right.
But it is Jamaica.
That's not it?
No, this is Jamaica.
Okay.
This is Jamaica. But Vayula is a song, the version of Bob Sinclair
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
brought Fitzroy and me, because we co-wrote that song, more copyright royalties than the original version. And in wider countries, I mean, we get copyright royalties from Israel, from this, from Russia, from China, from
Right.
all over the world, and from a long period of time. And it would be interesting. The reason that I speak of that is the DJs working with soca music, bouillon music, Creole music. I don't see any albums right now. Streaming has more or less taken over, but up to now, I don't see any albums by the DJs.
Hmm.
And it took Bob Sinclair. Well, I'm happy he did it,
Right.
Right.
because he had a label all over the world and took us to places that we never thought that the music would go. But it's interesting. Vayula, I wish I could have sent it to you guys. Yeah, as a matter of fact, as we speak, I will find his version and the Exile One version and send it to Novelist.
Yeah, man. Appreciative of that for sure.
And so I think that this is something that should be done. The DJ will make deals with bouillon artists, soca artists, zouk artists, do your thing, release it on your name.
Right.
And I don't see that happening.
That is true.
Maybe something new will be created.
Well,
Is that
today
like
DJs employ singers. It's not the other way around.
Well,
DJs rule in the industry.
but, another thing is to even to get music from some of these artists. It's almost like you have to beg them for their own music too, right? So that also could be a distraction. But
No, but I think if you identify something that can become a hit,
mhm,
Yes.
do like Bob Sinclair, because that's what Bob Sinclair did. Huh? When he
Understood.
heard Vayula, he contacted me because I am the publisher of the song
right,
Mm-hmm.
and the owner of the master. And I made a deal with him. You make a deal with them, and they might be surprised what you can do with the song.
Understood. Understood. That's very inspiring.
Yeah.
so Gordon, it's before we leave here.
We have to leave right now. I'm really enjoying this. I feel like I'm talking to like a grand uncle. I mean,
Yes, I know it.
age
I
is
I,
or
I
nothing. I really enjoying my time with you, Mr. Henderson.
and so am
Well, thanks a lot.
I.
Me as well.
And for me,
It's 2 o'clock, isn't it?
it's a great joy
Okay.
to be in contact with the other generation. You know that, huh?
Right.
Hey,
Oh, yeah.
thank you. Thank you.
My only regret is I don't want to drive you into alcohol, that we don't have some champagne and some nice pastries
Right.
that we can
Understood.
reach out and have together.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But
Not only that, it's virtual.
right.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Right.
sir.
But maybe one day, we could that could happen. Right? You never know.
Hopefully.
Never know.
Hopefully.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're too ahead in this
But
discussion.
So, Gordon, I have the hardest question for you of the night.
Tell me.
Tonight was very informative, very educational, and I hope the audience could say the same. Of course, we will continue next week with some of these topics that we touched tonight. But I got a very hard question for you tonight. In all
Okay.
these hit songs that you have written, what is Gordon Henderson's favorite song that you have written?
Well,
I feel,
um,
I feel like that is a cheap shot, from the was. I just putting that out.
some writers usually say that they consider their works to be like children, like
Yes,
their children.
yes,
Yes, I
So,
heard that. Yes.
to be politically correct, you you don't you don't have a favorite.
yeah.
But to be very honest, probably my favorite song is a song titled Hommage à France Fanon, tribute to France Fanon.
Okay.
And it only became a significant hit in Martinique because France Fanon was from Martinique.
Right.
I don't know if you guys are familiar with France Fanon. Because France Fanon is, was, because he died pretty young. He was a psychiatrist and an anti-colonialist who wrote some very inspiring books. And he is the one who motivated people like Malcolm X and even Martin Luther King. And I got to read some of his books
Hmm.
when I was about 18, 19 in English,
Hmm.
and later read them in French. And I wrote a song in tribute to Frantz Fanon, and this is my all-time favorite.
Nice.
Right.
And,
I can
and
understand
for
why.
other reasons, I like Fresh because Fresh represented, there are two songs, Fresh and another one titled Music of the Brothers, represented what I thought was the next step from Cadence Calypso. We could have kept the name or would have done like the Jamaicans and call it something else as we go along.
Right.
But the public didn't follow. The public didn't follow. As a matter of fact, Fresh took about 10 years to become a hit in Martinique, Guadeloupe, in our normal market. And it
Hmm.
took about 20 years for Dominica to accept it.
Wow.
Wow.
You know? Yeah, because we're in 21.
Right.
Hmm.
Fresh started getting airplay probably about 10 years ago in Dominica.
Wow.
So the public didn't move at the same rate. And
I think
but
that goes hand in hand with
but
your point of saying, that's where a disc jockey can step in,
oh yeah,
especially when you see you producing and you come in your own native kind, countryman kind. You want to produce the best of your ability to showcase to everybody else, right? Yeah, man.
yeah, disc jockeys
Hmm.
are the most important players
Hmm.
in an industry like ours. And when I say ours, I'm speaking of the Creole music market. And when I say the Creole music market, I include soca and everything. And it's a significant market. A lot of people think it's a little niche market. No, it's millions of people. Um, if COVID doesn't stop me again once, when I leave Paris on Monday,
Hmm.
God willing, I'm going to the Indian Ocean to perform in Reunion Island,
Right.
and I will only perform on one half of the island, which gives me the possibility of returning anytime later in the year to perform in the other half of the island.
Wow.
Wow.
And unfortunately, COVID stopped an Exile One tour. We started in Reunion Island.
Right.
We went to Martinique, Dominica, New York, and then lockdown.
Right.
Yeah.
We haven't been able
Yeah.
to do anything since. But the Creole market is a vast market, and DJs can do. The musicians are doing what they can.
Right.
But I
Yes, of
think that
course.
the real players
Is the
that
DJs.
can make some dynamism happen in the industry. DJs.
You guys heard it there.
Our fellow Dominican DJs watching. Gordon Henderson, have all your back.
You guys heard it here.
You guys
So
heard it here on Dissect.
So, Gordon, we want to thank you for joining us here. And man, I appreciate the knowledge. I appreciate the company. This was very educational and
Very special.
So
Very
I want
special.
to thank you again, and hopefully one day we'll sit and have that champagne or a wine, a glass of wine or something, and maybe one day we'll get you right back here on Dissect with us.
Hey, on behalf of the entire team, thank you for coming out. It was it's a really good way to kick off the second season with Gordon Henderson. I feel like
Most
I'm
definitely.
partly a celebrity right now. I don't know why. So I'm gonna go find some champagne when we're done and sip, get
Yeah.
my nerves calm because I just finished.
Champagne and not California.
Hey, yes sir, will do.
I've learned so much today. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
And
Well,
it's amazing that you know one of the artists that I've been following a bit. And she shared the same name as me. And she's a very nice person. Hopefully one day she'll come here and have a talk.
Yeah, that's another thing. You seem really up to date with Do you see yourself slowing down in the next couple of years? You seem really more up to date than me with music. I don't even know. I should
Well, the
probably
only
think
thing
of
I can
changing my
slow me
profession.
down is health, and thank goodness I feel fit. So
It's a
I'm
blessing.
glad-
It's a blessing. I say health is a blessing. Is a blessing.
It is.
Hmm Straight.
All right,
and,
Gordon.
and Michael Jordan saved some of us.
Yeah. Also, you following that trend. On behalf of TDN TV Islands Therapy, we thank you again for coming. Thank you everybody for joining us. This has been Dissect. And next week, Saturday, right back here with another special guest. Keep it locked right here. And with that note, we're gonna take it out with Gordon Henderson's favorite song right here, Dissect.
Un homme qui combat toute forme de l'oppression. Prouvé scientifiquement que colonialisme c'est une aberration. Psychiatre qu'il était, ouais, ça comme une cause de la folie. Ça mangeait dernière goutte de sang que tout tenait. Grand Martinique, grand homme du monde entier. Oh mais,